All right, folks, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA, and this is my stimulus update for Saturday, December 19th. So, disappointingly, but not surprisingly, there was no breakthrough yesterday. Congress did pass a 2-day continuing resolution, a stopgap measure to buy them more time to keep the government funded at current levels through Sunday. House passed it 320 to 60. Senate passed it unanimously. Trump did sign that last night, just after 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So by all indications, it looks like they're trying to wrap this all up by tomorrow night. Will that happen? We shall see. When the news broke that Congress passed the CR, I posted this question in the channel. I asked, Congress just passed a 2-day stopgap spending bill to keep the government funded through Sunday. Trump is expected to sign tonight to avert government shutdown. You all think they'll finalize a deal on stimulus and the government funding omnibus before the weekend ends. 22% of you said yes. You think they will finalize a stimulus and government funding bill before the weekend ends. 78% of you said no. You do not think that will happen. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, before the CR was passed, Senators Josh Hawley and Bernie Sanders did push for $1,200 stimulus checks yesterday, but as expected, they were shot down. Republican Senator Ron Johnson blocked the proposal twice, and if he didn't, I'm sure some other Republican would have. And perhaps disappointing to some of us, Hawley and Sanders backed down. They did not ultimately block the 2-day government funding extension, despite some threats, particularly from Bernie Sanders, of being willing to do just that last week. Remember last Friday, when Congress passed the 1-week stopgap measure, Bernie said, I am prepared to withdraw my objection at this moment, referring to his objection last week to the 1-week stopgap measure. I will not be prepared to withdraw an objection next week. We will deal with the financial crisis facing tens of millions of Americans. Well, he did make an objection yesterday to the 2-day stopgap measure, but he also withdrew it. Is this a sign that he and Hawley are resigned to $600 stimulus checks rather than $1,200? We'll see. We'll see how the weekend transpires. Bernie Sanders did say yesterday on the Senate floor, Majority Leader McConnell and I do not agree on much. But as I understand it, we are in agreement on at least one point, and that is that the Senate cannot go home until a COVID emergency relief bill is passed. He went on to say, let me be absolutely clear that I will object to any attempt by the Senate to pass an omnibus appropriations bill and leave town before passing a COVID relief bill with substantial direct payments going to working people. So he's kind of leaving his threat for another day, namely tomorrow. But of course, the question is, what does Sanders consider substantial? He was very specific before, $1,200, but now he's just using this broad term. He's not going to let the Senate leave town until they pass a COVID relief bill with substantial direct payments. He has obviously thrown cold water on the notion of $600 stimulus checks before. He wants $1,200. But yesterday, after making this statement on the Senate floor, he declined to answer a question from a reporter on whether he considers $600 substantial. So what do you think? Did Bernie cop out here? Should he have held up the 2-day stopgap measure for the sake of $1,200 stimulus checks? Or did he do the right thing here by withdrawing his objection? Because if he hadn't, the situation could have possibly descended into more chaos. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about Bernie Sanders withdrawing his objection to the 2-day stopgap measure. Now, about Josh Hawley, I told you yesterday that he expressed that he feels that he is in the dark here on what exactly congressional leaders are actually proposing. He hasn't even seen this bill that's apparently been floating around congressional leadership. I imagine that many other rank and file members of Congress feel the same. But apparently, they're supposed to vote on this thing, best case scenario, tomorrow, unless all this gets delayed again. This is an absolute shame, folks. I mean, Congress knew we were facing this cliff with this eviction moratorium, with the PUA, the PEUC months ago, right? Maybe in the CARES Act, we can't blame them for not making these provisions longer or giving more money to the people, because maybe at that time, they may have reasonably thought, okay, this coronavirus thing, it's going to last a few months, maybe die out in the summer. Let's do a $1,200 stimulus check, right? We'll do the boosted unemployment through July. Then we'll be back to normal by fall. Maybe that was a reasonable position to take, right? Arguably, right? We didn't know a whole lot about COVID-19 back then. That obviously didn't happen. And I think when cases started picking up again in late September, it was obvious that this is something that will be with us for a while, at least until vaccine distribution is accomplished en masse, which at that point, many people didn't think we'd have not just one, but two approved vaccines before the end of the year, right, which we do now, Pfizer and Moderna. A reasonable position to take back in late September was, hey, we need to extend assistance all the way through 2021, and we have this cliff coming in December 2020. Anyway, my point is they saw this cliff from months away, right? And yet here they are at the last minute trying to cobble something together. Congressional leadership trying to cobble something together. Meanwhile, rank and file members are in the dark and are just expected to vote how their congressional leaders, their party leaders, say they should vote. It's sad, but that's the situation. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said that while he is hopeful that an agreement will be reached in the near future, there are still significant issues outstanding. Republican Senator John Cornyn, though, painted this as all very normal. He said this is just a normal pain associated with getting to a final solution. The big issue continues to be the CARES Act lending facilities. Republicans want to end them permanently and prevent Democrats from reviving them next year. Democrats do not want to do that. They want this lever in place in case they need it. This goes back to the same issue from weeks ago with Mnuchin saying he wanted to end these lending facilities at the end of the year and requesting the Fed give back the appropriated funds to Treasury because they had served their purpose. Dems were making a big stink about that despite the utilization of these programs being so low. I think in my November 22nd update, I went over some of these facilities and pointed out that for the facility for state and local governments, it only made 2 loans, one to Illinois, one to New York MTA, I think. New Jersey thought about using the facility, but it found cheaper money in the private bond market. So I really wouldn't agree with Republican Senator Pat Toomey's assessment here that these programs make the Fed the lender of first resort, because clearly they haven't, because clearly a lot of entities did not even use these programs this year. So what am I saying? I'm saying it would be an absolute shame if relief and government funding get held up further on account of this issue. Senate is in session today. They will start, I think, at 11 a.m. Eastern time, so just in a little bit here, pushing through administrative business. Judicial nominees, of course, Mitch's favorite thing. House is not in session today. We'll be in session tomorrow. We'll take first votes at 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So it sounds like the game plan is that today, behind the scenes, a deal will be continued to be worked on, but the activity on the floor of the House of the Congress will not take place tomorrow unless something changes in the game plan that we've seen right now. All right, folks, that is my update for now, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.